Hey, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Thursday live stream where we talk about photography and I do my best to answer any questions, particularly about Olympus cameras and photography skill sets and whatever I can do. I'll do my best. It's always good to see everybody here. All my usual friends here. John follows, John Lees, Jonas, Randy, Serge. Seraphin, Plato, David Crooks, how are you? I'm looking forward to the Maryland side of the photo walk this weekend. David Crook runs a local photography club here that I joined, and it's been awesome experience for me. So I highly recommend you guys. If you have a photo club in your area, or you don't know where one is, you can go to meetup.com, and you can probably find a healthy, thriving photo club group nearby you. But I'm very fortunate in this area. There's many, but I happen to get probably the best one. Yes, I'm punctual today, Plato. Semi-punctual, right? I started maybe only a minute late. Oh, music here at work. Okay, cool. But watching anyway. And nature's here. Awesome. So, yeah, a lot's going on this week. I have a photo job. I talked about it on Tuesday. It's coming up tomorrow, and I'm gonna try and do some video work on that. What's Randy saying here? He said he's getting ready for a road trip. Oh, that's right. You want to do some camping or something, and you're gonna take your DF, awesome camera, and the M1X, also awesome. Your PL8, a full spectrum. Oh, that's really cool. I don't think I've seen any images from you that are full spectrum, but that would be pretty cool. For those of you that don't know, basically full spectrum cameras, they take all the filters off the front of the camera so it can receive all of the light onto the sensor. Because the way the sensors are designed now is for visible light that we can see with the human eye generally. So it cuts out infrared, it cuts out a bunch of other spectrums as well via filters on front of the sensor. But if you take all those sensors off, then it's going to receive everything in. And then you have to do some processing so that we can bring it into the visible spectrum so that we can actually see it, right? But we can kind of get a virtual view of how birds might see things, or dogs, or whatever. Different animals, they see different wavelengths very differently. So, but that's pretty cool. Yeah, you've got it covered. The AutoCore TLR. You know what you're missing? I can think of one thing, is a Polaroid. You should bring a Polaroid, like an SX70. Do you have one? I got one. It's awesome. This was a birthday gift, and I went out and we looked at it, but yeah, this is what you need to bring. Oops, I don't even remember how to open this thing anymore. But yeah, it's all metal. It's a beautiful camera. What the heck? Why am I... It's been a while since I've used it. Oh. Let me do this when I can concentrate on it. Maybe. No, that's the film. That's the viewfinder. Oh, there we go. It's supposed to lock into place. Well, man. Oh, there we go. Now we're done. But this one you can actually, it's a little different than probably the Polaroid you see at Best Buy and stuff. This one you can actually focus. It also has a slot here. You can add a flash if you want. Manual focus, and then there's exposure comp here. But this is the Polaroid SX70 land camera. So yeah, you need to bring that definitely if you have one. Let's see. Full spectrum on Flickr. Okay, I'll check it out. Hey, Casper and Arthur, good to see you. Yeah, you've always wanted a Polaroid. Yeah, get the SX70. I got this one at, it was a gift, but we picked it up at a thrift shop for 70 bucks. And you can buy them refurbished, like, you know, on Amazon. I think they're like 300 and some dollars. But, you know, if you can get lucky and find one for well under 100 bucks. This one was in almost mint condition, though. Other than me jamming it up. I never dropped it, though, I swear. So I just had too much coffee today, so I'm a little fidgety. And I just don't have any sense of like force. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I'm a little jacked up today. Oh, let's see what else we got here. John Leach says, I took the plunge and took out a subscription for Photoshop in a recent Amazon Prime deal. Should be interesting to see the advances since CS5. Yeah, I have Photoshop, or I have Lightroom 5, which I don't think that's even CS. I can't remember. I have that on my old HP laptop, but it doesn't open up any of my Olympus files. You know, it's just I had to convert everything to DNG. You know, so you know, it just kind of forced me to upgrade. I got tired of doing that. Yeah, you can at least see what develops. The only thing you have to be careful with Polaroids is, you know, the film comes out face up. I wish they could have designed it so it comes out face down, because theoretically the film might still be able to pick up some light, so they come out slightly overexposed if it's really bright out and that thing pops out. So they sell these little covers. I just use my hand to cover it as it's coming out. You know, so I'll like push the button and then cover. But they sell these black cards that you can attach so that, you know, it doesn't overexpose when it comes out. So it's just one little flaw in the whole process, right? Oh, let's see. Seraphin says, I have two different formats of Polaroids from the 80s and 90s my father found in storage. We used the very last day at Epcot before COVID shut down. Really? You used that recently? Yeah, the film's expensive though. It's like 20 bucks for 8 shots. It's like, come on. Seriously? And the film for this one, I actually have to order online because I can't find it locally, even at Best Buy. It uses slightly different film, if I recall. Like I said, it's been a while. When I finish this, I still got, I don't know how many shots. It says here, I don't know if 6 means I got 6 left or I took 6. But there's a little counter back here. And take a picture of you guys maybe. if only, right? If only I could see all of you, right? Instead of all this text in the chat window. Oh wait, we have Zoom, right? Oh, not sure I'm ready for that though. And hey Thomas, how are you? And Petra, good to see you. And Plato says, what is the exposure shift and how does it relate to exposure compensation in ISO, aperture, and oh, okay. Exposure shift is generally when you're in program mode. So otherwise, like if you're in aperture priority or shutter priority or manual, no, not manual on Olympus, but aperture and shutter priority, you use exposure compensation where you're adjusting the exposure in terms of stops, right? So you can add 1 stop to aperture priority, and what it's going to do, it's either going to change the shutter speed or the ISO, right, to adjust by 1 stop, depending on the lens you're using and all of that. In program mode, the camera has complete control over all 3 parameters, right? Shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. So if you want the image to be brighter, you can shift the exposure by 1 stop, very similar to exposure comp, but then the camera's going to decide how to do it independently of all, you know, independently on each setting. So I'll show you on the camera. Use my little nifty device here. So I'll put this in the program mode. Oops, let me. And if you look right now at the bottom left, we have a little P, right? To tell us we're in program mode. But if I rotate the rear dial, I'm now changing the exposure, but not in terms of stop. Well, what the heck? The rear dial is aperture priority, front dial is exposure comp. All right, so let me elaborate on program shift. You see how it says PS now? That means I've shifted the programming logic that the camera's using to calculate the exposure. So by rotating the rear dial, I'm saying don't use, you know, I'm telling the camera I want to choose the aperture. So this is effectively like aperture priority. And you'll see the ISO is adjusting. In this case, we're doing it in thirds of a stop. And then the front dial is exposure comp, and you can see that it's a little dimmed out. So you still have exposure comp in program mode, but that's not program shift. Program shift is the aperture, right? In this case. So, you know, this is actually, I mean, this, I'm not explaining it too well. This is actually going to be in part 4 of my series on exposure, where I talk about the differences of program shift and exposure compensation and aperture priority, shutter priority, manual mode. I never used program mode, so, you know, I'm a little bit rusty on that part of it. But it only takes a few seconds, right, to figure it out. You can see the back dial is aperture, the front dial is exposure comp. So exposure comp is exposure comp regardless of what mode you're in. Program shift is you're shifting the aperture in program mode, at least in this case. I don't know if you can change it so you can shift the shutter speed instead of aperture. I'll have to look into it a little more, but you know, it's only applicable when you're in program mode. Okay. Sorry about that, the confusion there, but that's the idea. So I don't think there's exposure shift, there's program shift, and there's exposure comp. There's not exposure shift. Rick, hi. How are you? Magrat isn't well. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I hope she's okay, or he's okay. Oh my goodness. It's nothing worse than, you know, like when your pet's not doing well. And pet is kind of an understatement, right? They're really part of your family. At least to me, you know. Good, not good afternoon. I'm sorry, Thomas. Yeah, we all have those days, right? And Nature says, went out on a photo walk today to Windsor Great Park, Queens place. Oh yeah, fall is really pretty much in full swing now. Isn't a smartphone an instant view camera? Yeah, pretty much sums it up. But you know, the Polaroid is more of an artistic thing, nostalgic thing now, right? So it's like we still like to play records on record players, even though we can just stream on our Alexa device or whatever, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. And you know, Nick Carver uses this land camera and sells prints from them, believe it or not. I guess he scans them in and then sells them as prints. If you go to his website, you'll see prints that he sells, and he'll tell you what camera he used, the SX70. And JJP, just wondering about the full spectrum thing. Does one buy a full spectrum camera, or does one have to they might sell full spectrum cameras, I don't know, but I think most people they buy they buy modified cameras. So it might be like an EM10 Mark II, and then it's been modified to full spectrum. I think in Randy's case, it was a PL8. Or you can send your existing camera in and they'll do it for you. So you pay a little less having your own camera converted. A lot of people do it though. They convert their cameras. And Thomas is asking, any thoughts on the Takina 24 FC adapter M43? And the local camera shop suggested Takina. I'm not familiar with that. A Takina 24mm FC adapted to the M43. And then you were looking at a Canon 28mm FD, but the local camera shop suggested the Takina. You know, hold on. I actually have that lens. I dropped the cap, not the lens. This is the 28mm f2.8 Takina. It's very soft unless you stop it down, if I remember correctly. I haven't used it in a while. I mean, it's pretty sharp once you stop it down to f4 and stuff, but it's not sharp wide open by any means. If my memory serves me right. Let me see. Let me pull up my Lightroom. I might have, assuming I put the EXIF data in, because I put this on my PenF a couple times, and at f2.8, let me see. Oh, things are taking a while to load. If I go to 2016, 17, 18, let me change over to that screen so you guys can see it. What button is it? This one? I think. Yeah. Oh, you're not, you're seeing this screen. Hold on. There we go. Let me find the lens type. Lens. And off. Let's see, 24, 25, 28. Here. Here's some images from the Takina 28mm. And I don't have the actual aperture I use to shoot these because, you know, I used a dumb adapter, right? You find some generic, oh crap, that I was using the tilt shift with this one. Tilt shift. But you see how soft it is? Like this is my old Beetle. You know, the focus point was right here on the Beetle. And that's the tilt shift. Let me see if I can find one where I didn't use a tilt shift adapter. Probably this one. This looks pretty good actually. 1/40th of a second. I don't know if I was at f2.8 though. This I probably stopped this down because that's a pretty slow shutter speed. Yeah, this one I shot wide open. So this one I shot wide open because look at the shutter speed, you know, 1/2500th of a second, right? But you can see it's soft. I mean, when you're at that high shutter speed, you should be tack sharp. There's not going to be any motion blur or anything, right? Let's see, anything else interesting here? How about this one? This one's at 1/40th, so I probably stopped down. See, stop down, the center is pretty sharp. But, see. Oh, those are some test shots of me. This one I think I used the tilt shift again. I'm sorry, I wish I had better images. But a lot of these I use tilt shift. But okay, I'm gonna move on. Sorry. But that's my opinion. Is generally it's soft wide open, so I don't know anything about the Canon 28 FD. I'm sure it's sharper wide open, but the Tokina, I paid like $25 for this lens. So there's that, right? I don't know what a Canon 28 would do. Oh my God, I just wasted 5 minutes on the wrong lens. You're talking about the Tokina 24. This is a 28. I'm so sorry. This is the 28mm f2.8 that I paid $25 for, and it's soft wide open. I don't have any opinion on either lens. Then I'm an idiot. Total idiot. I'm sorry. Let me slow down a little bit. Lightroom got the upgrade to have color grading to catch up with Capture One. Oh, okay. I don't use color grading in Lightroom. I'll have to look at it. Bob, how are you? Team is playing on the TV tonight. Oh, good. And just getting by. You guys were talking amongst yourself here, which is awesome. Plato says, a lot clearer now. Thanks, Rob. I found it on my EM1 but not on my EM5 I never use P mode. Yeah, don't worry about it. God, that was from a long time ago. P is for professional. Yep. My kitty shop made the Flickr International Cat Day for October 9th. Lots of beautiful kitties there. Okay, yeah, I'll have to go back and look at your Flickr today. I uploaded a bunch of stuff to Flickr today because I don't know if you guys know, but I got this E500 the other day, and I took it out for a proper photo walk yesterday, I think. Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. I took it out. It was really foggy out, but it's cloudy, so I like it better when it's foggy in the morning than the sun comes out. But it was just cloudy most of the morning yesterday. So there's a bunch of pictures from my E500 on my Flickr page if you want to check them out. And I did vlog it, but I haven't edited any of the video yet for the vlog, so I'm going to post that vlog up later. And Ronald says, hi Rob, I enjoy your channel. Thank you for your knowledge. I'm new to this world. I purchased OMD EM10 Mark III. I have a lot to learn. We had many sandhill cranes here in West Texas during migration. I don't know what a sandhill crane is. But you're welcome, Ronald. I'll help in any way I can. Let's see, and then Lauren, John, my cat died in traffic. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, John. Yeah. After my last dog passed away, naturally, it only took me about a month to get another one. And Randy says, you have a huge library of Lightroom. My libraries are separated by year and camera. I separate by year, and then I just use the database to find the camera or whatever if I need it. Lauren says, we need to see Ellie. Oh, yeah, she's sleeping. And Nature says, got some great photos today. I have a question, everyone. Can I do focus stacking bracketing with flash? Yes, you can. I have a video on it, actually, on how to focus bracket with flash. Basically, you set up a timer in the focus bracketing menu. Let me see if it'll pop. I don't think it'll show here. Let me see. Go to shooting menu 2. Yeah, I don't have access to bracketing when it's hooked up to the HDMI. But yeah, I have a video on it. You can search for it. Just search bracketing on my channel, and then you'll see one how to bracket with flash. Rob, was the VW reliable, fun to drive? Fun to drive, yeah, perfect 10. I love that car. I loved it. Oh my God. But I bought it because I had the Jetta before that. I had a 2012 Jetta diesel, but and it was rock solid, but it had two major potential problems was with the cooling, the intercooler for the turbo, I believe, and also the fuel pump, right? The high pressure fuel pump. And I was reading about it in the forums, so I traded it in before it had any problems, and it was still under warranty. I only put like 38,000 miles or something on it. And I traded in, I got that Beetle, and I said, look, I'm not buying diesel from VW anymore because too many problems. And then 2 or 3 years after that, I think I had the car 2 or 3 years. It had a timing chain problem. And it was like $2,800 to fix. So I said, screw that. So I traded it in at a slight loss and said, I'm just buying a Japanese. So I bought that Mazda that you guys see in my videos now. I've had that now for 3 years. So yeah, I'm never buying VW products again. And you know, the sad thing is the ridiculous, I don't know how to put this, but right after I traded my Jetta, a couple months later, I got a letter in the mail from VW saying, we will pay for any repairs related to your intercooler and your high pressure fuel pump, you know, and warranty it for 100,000 miles. Or I forget what it was. There was some class action suit. And then after I traded my Beetle in, a couple months later, I got a letter from VW saying, you know, we're gonna pay for all the repairs related to the timing chain, you know, because the timing chain is a critical failure, right? You can blow your engine. So in both cases, VW did come back and take care of customers. As far as I know, I don't know. I got rid of mine before I had to worry about it. But they did come back and take care of the customers under class action lawsuits, as any company would get anyway, with those kinds of major critical engine failure type problems, right? Anyway, so I bought a Mazda. I said, screw it. I'm just buying a Japanese car. You know, Mazda was the only one I really liked of all the Japanese. I didn't care for Honda, Toyota too much. Okay. Anyhow, I forget where we are. So many text messages came in. John Follows says, I have a few Canon FD lenses, including that Tokina, and none of them are really any good at full aperture, even the Canon lenses. But I do have a zoom, and that is quite surprisingly sharp. Okay, good to know. So yeah, so it's this 28 millimeter is fairly representative of really any lenses from this era, right? They're not very sharp wide open. There's only a handful. And if they are sharp wide open, they're expensive. So that's why you know a lot of these lenses you can buy super cheap, but they have their character, right? Character flaws. But if they're expensive, you know, then you know they're really sharp wide open usually. There's a reason they're expensive, the old vintage lenses. Let's see. Lawrence says, talking Olympus lenses, I got the 45mm some time back and it's super quality. I think the sale prices are $249 to $299. Looks pro to me, don't do much in the rain. Yes, the 45mm is definitely sharp. I mean, it's not 45mm pro sharp, because I watched a video by Joseph Ellis where he compared the 45mm regular lens with the 45mm pro lens, and wide open, it's a big difference between the two. Definitely the 45 f1.8 is a little bit soft wide open compared to the 45mm pro wide open. And then that sharpness carried all the way through the aperture range, where the 45mm f1.2 Pro is sharper in every aperture, if I remember correctly. But it wasn't so much sharper that I want to drop $1,000 on it just to get that half a stop and a tiny bit more sharpness. So, you know, because you can sharpen a little bit in post and it'll get you there 90% of the way, right? So I don't bother with the pro lenses personally unless it's a focal length that I need or an aperture that I need, which the only I have two pro lenses, right? I have the 12 to 40 Pro, which I needed for the f2.8 because I do video, and I'm using it right now actually. And then how come there's no I've been talking with no video for how long? But the you know, I shouldn't have streamed today. I'm just screwing up left and right. I can't remember what I was talking about. Oh, I got the 12 to 40 Pro and the 8mm fisheye, which is a pro lens. And I got that for primarily I wanted to do real estate and astrophotography, but you know, I used it for about 6 or 7 months that way for real estate, but then I switched back to the 7 to 14 because I'm doing more video now. And I need a rectilinear image. I prefer a rectilinear image to start with rather than correcting in post. Which I do need to get to something else, kind of big news too. I should upload some new photos too. Was the biggest park in Vienna taking some... Oh, cool. Yeah, that would be awesome, Corna. Let me put the time on here. Toggle timestamp. Audio only at 3:29. So okay, only about 5 minutes was I talking with no video. And Lauren says Mazda 6 handles great. Mazda rocks. Yeah, Mazda is awesome. I mean, I bought the Mazda 6 because I needed the trunk space at the time, because I was taking care of my uncle and it was only I needed something that I could put his wheelchair in the back of my car. And he passed away about 2 years ago. You know, about a year after I bought the car. And if you buy Mazda, you should really get a Miata, you know? I mean, it's kind of their signature car, right? And that's the car I really want, is a Miata. I don't know. Maybe next year I'll look at it again. I just can't do it this year. I've spent way too much money. And John Matthews says, do you know a way to get the red and blue highlight shadow warnings to show in live video mode on the M1 Mark II? I have them in photo mode, but not in video. I don't know. I don't think you can. I've never used it. It would be, I think it's the same on this camera. This is the M1 Mark III. Let me put it in video mode. It would be in the video menu under display settings. So info settings, custom 1 and 2. Yeah, it's not in here. So if it's not on the M1 Mark III, it's not on the M1 Mark II. Yeah, it's nothing here. So yeah, it can't be done. Uh, Marsha, how are you? Yes, I'm here. I've been jibber jabbering with no camera, right? And oh, that's Randy. Whoops. Timing chain should last a long time. Timing belt less so. Yeah, the timing chain itself was fine. It was the tensioner on the timing chain that would go bad. So once the tensioner is not working right, then your timing is off, and that's when you start throwing valves and things. On my Beetle, I love that Beetle. Beautiful, beautiful car, inside and out. It was the Fender edition, so it had the wood grain dash. I mean, it's fake, right? But it had the wood grain dash, which was beautiful, and you know, I really love that car. Rob is absorbed by the dark state. Yep. The dark web. Yeah, this is where I was just jibber jabbering with no camera. The photo of the dog last week was shot with the 45 Olympus. Oh yeah, I remember that. That was a cool shot. But you were really up close, right? I mean, every lens looks really tack sharp when you're very close to the subject, right? And Rob, the left the lens cap on. Yep. And Nature says, go to look out my Panasonic. Got to look. I'm sorry, Nature. Hold on. Nature with Music is saying, got to look out my Panasonic 42.5 Nocticron lens, particularly as light is reduced here in the UK. I think you meant the wording there is a little bit off, but I know what you mean. You're going to start using your 42.5 Noctitron lens more because it's dark. You need the light. Okay. And then Roman says you should pay the bill for the lights. Yeah. My electric bill is so low. I mean, it's like, I think it's only going to be about 70 bucks this month. Says you're fine. We know what you look like. Rob left us in the dark. I know. And is there 90 people? Oh yeah, it looks like it. We're all 83 right now, according to my little thing here. 2020 Miata is 26.5. I know. That's just too much. You know, I can't. That's like 500 a month, right? I can't do that. And would love to drive the Honda S2000. Yeah. You want to get the second or third generation though. Otherwise you'll be spinning out. But yeah, the Honda S2000, that's an awesome little car. And then Lauren says, I had 3 Miatas, but now think they are too low and small for my needs. I know. California's all monster SUVs, yeah. The first gen is the most fun. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the first gen. Or the semi second gen. I like the third gen Miata the most, the hard top. And then the newest one, I guess is fourth gen, whatever's out now, is I like the soft top better. I don't like the hard top. Get a GTI. No more VWs in my life. And I'm a huge VW fan, or I used to be. I drove Beetles growing up and through college, and I was this close to getting a GTI, but I decided on a Jetta again because I needed the trunk for the wheelchair and stuff. Ugh. Now a green flash and the scrolling comments have disappeared. Oh, that's weird. That's not me. That's got to be YouTube. Yeah, Olympus needs to add zebras in video mode. Love the Implementation of the histogram, yes. And Randy says, I'm so excited. Possible rain in the forecast. Clouds in the sky. Yay. Yes. We like clouds, right? As photographers. I mean, blue sky is just, it's not very interesting. It's just a blue sky. So that, you know, we got sky replacement now in our software, but it's still nice to get natural blue sky with clouds. David, you had a 73 Beetle, huh? With a sunroof and no heater. Yeah, the heaters in those old Beetles sucked anyway. You'd like burning your ankles, you know? Because the heat would only come out on the floor through like one little vent, if I remember correctly. And it always worried me that I'd get like carbon monoxide poisoning because the hot air in the Beetle used to go through a heat exchanger in the engine, right? So if there was one little rust hole or something in your exhaust system, you could potentially be cranking exhaust fumes back into the car. Crazy, right? Get a Land Rover Defender, go anywhere. Yeah, no, I'm not buying Land Rover. They're not reliable. They're worse than VW. I have a Jeep, which is maybe 5% better than a Land Rover in terms of reliability. But if I could have my choice, I'd like a Toyota 4Runner as a 4x4. That would be my top choice, or a Highlander. But I think in real life, I'd have to get a. I was looking at the RAV4 hybrid, you know, because I need to get down to one car. I have two now. I have my Jeep and my Mazda. If I get a RAV4 hybrid, that'll kill two birds with one stone, right? I'll still get great gas mileage, but then I have a 4x4 for, you know, going onto a dirt road. Not like off-roading hardcore, but, you know, just if I need to turn around and not get stuck in the mud like I did with my Beetle. And Ruben says, waiting on a sale EM1 Mark II to be delivered. Is this a good step up? Yes, it's an amazing step from the PL8. It's leaps and bounds better. Yes, definitely. Because I have the PL8, and it can't hold a candle to an EM1 Mark II. That's for sure. And Marcus Prime says, I want to shoot the Milky Way, but the clouds have other plans. Yeah, that's the problem with astrophotography, right? And that's why you don't see any astrophotography videos from me, is because so many things have to come into play, right? It has to be the perfect storm, right? You have to have like no clouds, no moon, good weather, right? Clear skies, and it has to fit into your schedule, like usually the weekend, right? And then you have to be somewhere where there's no light pollution. I mean, there's so many things you have to put into consideration with astrophotography. Never mind, you know, taking the pictures, you know, just the logistics of it are there's a lot of overhead to get a good astro shot. Yeah, Photoshop is supposed to have AI. Oh my God, since I started chatting video, I checked out photo. I don't have Mac, so why would you get Final Cut Pro? Checked out. What, another screen, more RAM? Final Cut Pro, though, for everything I've seen when I watched videos on laptops and things, Final Cut Pro just rocked it. You know, you could use Final Cut Pro on a Mac, and it'll give you the performance like of a Windows machine that has twice as much power. You know, you could have twice as many cores and memory and everything on a Windows machine, but you know, you take a 2-3-year-old Mac with Final Cut Pro, and it'll edit videos just as good as any modern Windows machine. John says he almost killed himself in a Beetle. And you're an ex-rally driver. Perhaps I was going too fast. Yeah, come on. I got into a car with a guy that was like a rally driver once. That guy's a lunatic. Once. I got in the car once with him. Never saw him again, but man, he took that thing. Anyway. We were in a 300ZX. And he said, I really want to test this thing out. And my God, crazy. I could swear he got all four wheels off the ground. I mean, I was in the car, so how do I know? But we went over a small dip or hill or something, and that when that thing hit the ground, man, it was like, bam, it hit hard. Because, you know, the shocks are very stiff in that car. I don't know. And have I seen Photoshop's new AI features? Especially, I have not seen it, John. Yeah, it's going too far. I mean, if they're just selling software, right, to do all kinds of neat things, and it's all these little gimmicks that sell the software or camera or whatever it is people are buying. They always find a gimmick to make people say, well, you know, this software doesn't have that, so I'm going to buy that, or this thing doesn't have this thing, but this one does, so I'm going to buy this one instead. Ultimately, you know, the Photoshop has, you know, photo editing software has all the core elements you need, and if there's some extra features, great. But yeah, I don't get too excited about those things. It's like I do sky replacement now just manually, and it's not that hard. You know, you just layer and do a luminosity mask, and you're done. It's pretty simple. But now they call it AI sky replacement. And the software just, I don't know, it's probably just running a batch file or something, you know? And I'm sure it does some things a little better, like, you know, when I'm doing the masking, sometimes I miss a spot here and there. But it's just, yeah. And someone asked me if I had watched Thomas Heaton video about the AI coming out now and stuff. I hadn't watched it when they asked me last time, but I have watched it since, and he's absolutely right. Those things are just not really photography in the sense that, you know, you took the picture and it's not your own style, etc. You're using the AI style or artificial intelligence style. It's not your own style, right? And I'm not saying it's not photography. What I should say is I'm a little bit more of a purist in that sense, right? I don't want to use AI because it can make mistakes or do things that I don't want it to do. I'm not a fan of AI in that respect. Now, as a tool, if I can use sky replacement by clicking a button rather than, you know, making layers and doing masks and things, I might get a software because it has that as a tool for my pro work, because it'll save me time. But as an enthusiast or as a, you know, enthusiast, hobbyist type person, those things don't interest me at all. And Lauren says the RAV4 is okay gas mileage. Subaru has all-wheel drive. On the stock Subaru, choose wisely. Some models have issues than others. Great resale value. I considered a Subaru until they started putting their CVT transmissions in. Not a fan of that. I think the RAV4 has one too, but it's a hybrid and it gets 40 some miles to the gallon. So I think that's a compromise I'm willing to take. But as a Subaru four-wheel drive, you know, I'd like to have real gears. If I were buying a four-wheel drive for off-roading to any extent, then I would prefer real gears and enjoy the off-roading part of a Subaru. But I don't know. I've never liked the way Subarus look either. They're just cosmetically to me, and you know, it's purely opinion, right? Your opinion might be very different than mine, but I never liked how Subarus looked. Except for the one model, and that one had a CVT in it. But the Boxer engine is quite interesting, and it has its own issues, but See, how prevalent was post in the film days? These days, the skill of the photographer seems to be masked by all the posts. Yeah, I agree. I don't know how prevalent it was in the past. I was never a big film person. I just dropped it off the, 1 hour photo and got it back. I didn't do any of my own editing. And once I got the negatives scanned, I still don't do any editing on them other than maybe some exposure adjustment. And Nature says, I do all my work as videos, so put all my photos into video production. I can access Workspace directly for any photo imported into Final Cut. Oh, okay, I understand now. And John Trigg says, hi Rob, I ended up buying a 100 to 400 Panasonic paired with my M1.3. Any tips for these long lenses? I think the lens will get me off aperture priority and start to focus on shutter priority. Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're shooting, right? So if you're handheld and you're shooting birds in flight, if it's a larger bird, 1/1000th of a second. If it's a smaller bird, like fits in the palm of your hand, you need 1/2000th of a second to kind of freeze them. Whether they're sitting in a tree or they're flying, you need to be at like those shutter speeds. And then the aperture is just going to be wide open anyway. And because the birds are so far away, you don't have to worry about depth of field, so it's okay if the aperture is wide open. And then the other thing is just the auto ISO, make sure what you're comfortable with, up to 3200. I would say up to 1600, ISO 1600, you can get away with larger birds. And smaller birds to some extent. Smaller birds, I do ISO 800 because the higher your ISO, the more detail you lose, right? So those are the things you have to consider. And, typically I dial in +1 exposure comp on it because usually a bird in flight, their background is very bright because they're in the sky. So I compensate a little bit, try to use center weighted autofocus or single point autofocus so you can tie the exposure to the focus point. So there's lots of little things, but those are the main things. So exposure comp, ISO, and shutter speeds at 1/1000th or 1/2000th, depending on the size of the bird. And yeah, that about sums it up, I think. And then lots of practice, right? The nice thing is with a zoom lens, you can zoom out to 100 millimeters and find the bird and then zoom in, right? Don't try to find the bird zoomed in to 400 millimeters. That's hard, right? You can also think about one of those little laser eye things, or I don't know, what do they call it? A pointer that mounts on top of your camera. And it points a red dot that you're supposed to align with your lens. And that'll help you tracking naturally with your eye. And then you can push the shutter button and then assume that the bird is within the frame because it was within the dot sight. So there's lots of little things you can try. Hopefully some of those help. John says, my first Beetle was a 66 with a 6-volt. Wow. A candle put out more light than those headlights. And Rob, Vincent is asking, have I tried the Godox V1 flash? Any suggestion for my first flash? I think the V1 would be a great first choice. I don't have that flash. I use a Godox TT350 and a Godox 8200. The Godox V1 is probably twice as bright as a Godox TT350. And it gives a nice round light. That's the one with the round head, right? And it's pretty powerful, but it's sizable. It's the same size as your camera, if you want to look at it that way. So it's a big honking thing. Now, if you're using it off camera, then you're fine. If you're using it on camera, you just have to be a little conscious of the size. But off camera, you would use that. I would use that off camera with the radio trigger, either the X1T or the X1 Pro. I forget what it's called exactly. I changed to the X1 Pro recently. But I think it's an excellent flash, though it's a little pricey. For a little more, you can buy the Godox 8200, which is probably, you know, it's a 200 watt second equivalent. The V1 is about a 76 or 75 watt equivalent. So it's more than double the brightness of the V1 for just a little bit more money. So I think the 8200 would be a better choice, professionally speaking, if you're thinking about doing portraits or more professional photography. If you just want a very powerful flash that you're going to use professionally indoors, the V1 is a good choice. And then I'd say the TT350 is great for just casual use. You know, indoors, no problem. For even professional work, no problem. But the TT350 outdoors, it doesn't have quite enough power to if it's a bright day, it doesn't have quite enough power to kind of overcome the ambient light if you're outdoors. The V1 will overpower ambient light up to a point. It's about a stop brighter than the TT350, and the 8200 is at least another stop brighter than the V1. So just think about the size flash that you want and the use case. If you're just using it indoors to illuminate things in bedrooms or houses, living rooms, even small offices where the space is a little bit larger, TT350 is fine. If you want something with a little more power that you can use outdoors, the V1 is a better choice. And if you want to do any kind of professional work, I would start with an 8200. That would be my advice there, with a radio trigger. The 8200 is mandatory to have a radio trigger. I think the V1 and the TT350 have radio triggers built in, so you wouldn't need to buy a separate radio trigger if you buy two flashes, like the TT350 and a V1. Then those have built-in radio triggers. When they're mounted on the camera, you can control other Godox flashes. So again, it's just about scaling, right, and use case. And Tony, it was me, Rob. Okay. I can't remember what we were talking about anymore. Phoebe, hello. And Des, hey, how are you, Des? I haven't seen you in a long time. And he says, I'm really enjoying my EM1 Mark II. Got it with the free 45 Pro. Wow. Wow. Yeah, the 45, we were talking about that earlier, the 45 1.2 Pro. Joseph Ellis did an excellent video on it, comparing it to the 45 1.8. And yeah, that thing is really sharp. And JJP says, AI features is no long editing, if you ask me. It's image manipulation. Yes, I would agree. Still not thinking Tesla. No, I'm not going to get a Tesla. And Music Sound Care, Apple calls AI machine language. It doesn't sound so ominous. But machine language is actually a thing, right? Machine language is like machine language. It's the, I used to program in machine language. Just as not professionally, I didn't get paid to program machine language, but I did learn machine language, like LNA. God, I can't remember the commands anymore. So I don't know why they would call it machine language. That's kind of a contradiction well, not contradiction, but it throws me back to the days when I used to code in machine language. Man, anyone here ever program in machine language? It's been probably 30 years since I've looked at it, when we were still doing 8-bit machine language. And Serge says, buying presets is also kind of weird. You're using someone else's style instead of making your own. Yes. I mean, presets are fine. I think presets, you can, if you get them cheap or free, right, very low cost, like $10, and you like the way a certain preset looks, you can look at it and learn from it, right, and start to develop your own. Like, I would consider buying presets for film, meaning, I want to take this picture and grade it in a way that it looks more film-like. So I want to say, okay, I want Provia 160 film grading preset, or I want the Kodak Tri-X, I don't know, all the different film stocks they have, the Fujifilm, Superior. I'm actually semi-interested in things like that, but presets that do crazy things or apply, that have, like Fro sells presets. Fro knows photo, and he names his presets all kinds of weird things, right? I don't know, I can't remember now. Like, my brain turns off when people are selling whatever it is, usually. Not the first time. First time I do listen, but the second, third, fifth, 100th time that I watch a video and they're talking about they're selling their presets, you turn it off, right? In your brain. Those kind of presets don't interest me, where they give you very different looks and styles. And as you say, it is someone else's style. It's not your own. But when I'm looking for a specific style, like film stock, I might consider buying something like that. And hi, Jose, how are you? You're welcome. I don't know what I did, but you're welcome. And David Crook says, Ansel Adams did a lot of darkroom work. Yes, he did. Tons of it. Yep, and he wrote a book. I think I have that book, actually. I haven't read it yet. I just looked at the pictures. Kind of like the old magazines, right? The old adult magazines. You don't buy it for the articles, even though you say you do. And Randy says, I have 2 rolls of film ready to go for processing, but need to get 3 more shots on the TLR, then I'm off. Yeah, I know. I got like 2 shots left in my OM, and I've got maybe 8 or 9 shots left in my Nikon, my film cameras. And I got about 3 shots left in my medium format. I really should just go out and just take 10 pictures and I'd have all 3 rolls done. But I just get so distracted. I have to tell you guys about my latest distraction too. Time is at 4 o'clock. I hate to drop a bomb on everybody at the last minute though. It'd be better if I started out with this, but I still, anyway. Let me catch up on the chat, then I'll talk about this other bomb. I got some parrots in flight at the local bird park. Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll have to check out Casper. Casper has the Olympus 100 to 400 lens, and he really takes some great shots, and it's awesome to see what that lens can do. It's on my short list now. I hadn't considered it before, but after seeing everything that Casper's been posting, like either in my forum or on his Facebook page, and he just uses his name like he does here, his screen name, Casper Nyberg. You can find them on Facebook, and you'll find them on my forum using that name. But you can see a lot of pictures he took using that lens. And Nature says, robtrek, yes, need the zoom for birds, particularly in flight. Waiting for the 150 to 400, oh my God, with the 1.2x catalytic converter. Yeah, if you get that lens, man, you need to post a bunch somewhere. Because I want to see it. And Lauren says, oh, that's for JJP. And John McCormick says, any opinion on the Ollie 25 f1.8 versus the Panasonic 25? Yes, I did a comparison against those two directly. I think in terms of photography, and if you're using it on an Olympus camera, no difference, right? Photographically speaking. I think depending which camera, you may lose focus stacking in camera. You can still do focus bracketing, but focus stacking you'll lose when you put any third party or off party brand, right? If you put a Panasonic lens on an Olympus camera, you lose some special features. Like I bet I would lose live ND and handheld high res or focus. You lose a couple of small things, right? But generally speaking, both are great. And the Panasonic lens you can buy for $100 all day long, right? I have 2 of them myself. But I switched over to the Olympus 25mm for video because the Panasonic focuses so slowly in video mode on the Olympus contrast detect cameras, and still it's still a little bit unreliable in the phase detect cameras on Olympus. But for photography, I wouldn't hesitate recommending it for $100, even 150. You know, at 200, 250, you know, you're starting to get into the Olympus range. I'd recommend the Olympus if you're doing photography. But if you're doing video work, you have to get the Olympus one if you're using it on an Olympus camera. Now, if you're using a Panasonic camera, clearly the Panasonic lens in all cases. Never buy Olympus 25mm for your Panasonic camera. Never ever. There's no point. So that's my thoughts on that. And I have a video comparing those two directly if you want to watch it. Photographing birds needs to be over ISO 800 and high-speed shutter mode. Yes. Yeah, I wish you could do less, but I think David's right. ISO 800, because usually the apertures on those zoom lenses are like f5.6, f7, you know, you're up there. So you need to carry the ISO with it, right? Along for the ride with that high aperture. I can show you a shot I did though. Let me see if I can do this. Here's this one is at this is cropped in too. This is I took this with the Olympus 75 to 300 f6. Well, there's the EXIF, you can read it. ISO 1600, and I was still able to squeeze out some detail. You know, it's not perfect. There's some noise. Like if you look in the background and stuff, you'll see some noise. But if you back off and look at this at a normal, you know, viewing, I think it looks really good, even at ISO 1600. And you know, this is a small bird, right? But yeah, anyhow, there we go. But David is absolutely right. The ISO 800, unless you have like a 300mm f4, right? Then you might be able to get away with a lower ISO. Or the 40 to 150 f2.8, even lower. But it just depends on your focal length and all that. Okay, so Lauren said the 25 1.7 at f4 may suffer focus shift. How? Yes. Thanks for reminding me, Lauren. The 25mm Panasonic f1.7, people have reported some back focusing at f4 for some reason. I never noticed it because I rarely shoot exactly at f4. I'm usually wide open when I have that lens, but I've heard that, but I can't say for myself if that's happened to me. 400. Johanna says, looks like the 400mm or so lenses are primarily for birds, means medium distance. Far distance is difficult due to atmosphere. Yeah, you know, when they get too far away, you know, the atmospheric distortion is going to jack up, you know, whatever detail you might be hoping to get. Oh, Casper posted the parrot. I think I saw one. I can't remember now. I need to go back and look at those. All right, Silver Blankenite. And John McCormick says, thanks for the tips. I will look for the 149 deal. Yeah, 149 or less on that 25mm. I think I paid at 149 for one of them. No, one of them I got as a package when I bid on eBay with a PL8. The other one I paid full price at $250. When I first got my EM10 Mark II, I was looking for a prime, and $250 seemed reasonable because I was used to buying Nikon glass, right? $1,000, right? $800. So when I saw a 25mm prime for $250, I was like, oh, that's not bad. Nature says, Best option in Micro Four Thirds world is buy both Panasonic and Olympus camera, EM1 Mark II or 3 and a G9, maybe a GH5S and a selection of lenses. True, true. Which, what do we got? Okay. How many people are still here? Because I got a new camera. Manny got the 25 f1.7 to focus shift. I see a little soft focus now and then, but it's mostly a great lens for the bucks. I paid $99 about 3 years. Yeah, I've seen it for like $100 time to time. All day long, $149. Don't ever pay more than that. But if you can get it for $149, you're okay. If you can get it for $99, you got an awesome deal. I've never seen it less than that. Let's put it that way. Okay, all right. So yeah, we're like in the last few minutes of the stream, right? So I bought, you know, I've been talking about this in the last couple streams about how I'm doing video work now, and I wanted to get a video camera, video-centric camera. And I was debating between like GH5S and the G9, because now with the new firmware, it has the 422 10-bit internal recording. Because I'm on a gimbal, I don't want to set up a whole rig with external recording, you know, where you got all these freaking devices in it. And but anyway, I got a great deal on this. It's okay. No, it's not a brownie, but I got the S5 because this, I was looking at all the camera options. So this has 422 10-bit internal, and I got 10% off this and 0% financing for 18 months, right, at Best Buy. So I got $230 off because it's a $2,300 with this kit lens. So I got $230 off, plus I got 0% financing. So at that point I decided, okay, this is worth trying. And what ultimately made me decide on this one was two things primarily. One is, well, three things. There's a lot of things, but what steered me away from, say, the GH5S, right, which is 422 10-bit, 400-bit, you know, like really hardcore video camera, is that thing's going for $2,000, which is okay. I mean, I was willing to go for it, but I saw a comparison of the output from the new Panasonic, which is the replacement, you know, their little box camera, which uses the same sensor as the GH5S. I saw a comparison of that camera versus the GH5, not the S, but the GH5, the new BMPCC, whatever that thing is called, that, and the S5, this one. All three side by side. And the guy overexposed the shot by 4 stops. And then in post-processing, he pulled back all the highlights. The GH5, yeah, no hope. Most of the image was completely white. It was completely blown out at +4 stops. The new Panasonic that uses the same sensor as the GH5S, about 80% blown out. Better than the GH5, but still mostly blown out. This camera, the S5, he probably recovered 80%. Still like 20% blown out. It was still washed out at +4 stops. But he did recover most of the sky in that scene. And most of the image, I'd say 80% of the image was brought back to where you start to see detail and colors again. So I said, okay, so the full frame 24 megapixel sensor, you know, has dynamic range that I can pull in the highlights that I need. And then the other thing I looked at was the shadow noise, right? And all the Micro Four Third options, GH5S, G9, GH5, even the Blackmagic Cinema camera, you know, after watching hundreds of videos, right? In every single case, they could not they all had shadow noise. Whereas the S5 in the hands off between, I can't remember which camera against which, but S5 didn't have the same shadow noise. It had very, very little. So I just got this thing yesterday afternoon, and I did a quick test in my backyard against my EM1 Mark III OM log 400, which is 420 8-bit internal versus 422 10-bit internal on this. And surprisingly, on the highlights side, the EM10 Mark III was pretty close. EM1 Mark III was pretty close. I mean, yeah, this definitely did better. The S5 definitely did better. But for the test shots that I did, I would have been happy with the highlights on either camera. I wouldn't have been too upset. I was able to pull them in enough that I think professionally I could sell it, right? I wouldn't have a problem with selling images with those kinds of pulls on the highlights. But there was 2 or 3 more areas I considered, right? Image stabilization, the shadow noise, and what was the third thing? Rolling shutter, right? Those 3 things, right? Those are 3 other things you typically see when people do tests for whatchamacallit, tests for video cameras, right? So rolling shutter, EM1 Mark III crushed it. No rolling shutter, hardly at all. Panasonic S5, yeah, rolling shutter, no question, right? So I have to be a little conscious of that when I'm doing my professional work. Image stabilization, EM1 Mark III crushed it again. No comparison. I mean, it's a complete, it's like this has no image stabilization at all. I don't, you know, it sucked, okay, relatively speaking, for video. The EM1 Mark III, smooth as butter. You know, you guys saw my video when I went out on the boat, and that thing was silky smooth the whole time. And that boat was, you know, like this, right? Yeah, no chance with this. But the important thing is the shadow noise, because in terms of image stabilization, I'm going to be on a gimbal or a tripod. Doesn't matter. I turn off stabilization anyway. And then in terms of rolling shutter, I do very slow movements in real estate. You know, I'm just doing slider shots, which are very slow, and then a little bit of walking, which I'm going to have to walk very slow. So I'm not worried about rolling shutter, right? So those 2 out of 3 are a non-issue for me in the professional work that I do. Because again, this camera is just a tool, right? I'm not buying it because I wanted it. It's just I needed a tool that could do the job that I needed to do. But the shadow noise, yeah, big difference. The M1 Mark III, when I was pushing and pulling highlights and shadows, there was a lot of shadow noise, and I lost a lot of detail in the shadow areas with the M1 Mark III that I did not lose on the Panasonic S5. So that made it worth it to me. So I got this for $2,000, like $2,080 or something plus tax with the lens, right? So I got a killer deal on it. But so I'm going to do a photo job tomorrow, and I'm going to do video. They didn't ask me to do video, but I'm going to do a video shoot tomorrow as well if I have time, using this camera. And I may, if I have time, I'll use both cameras, my EM1 Mark III and this. But primarily I'm going to use this camera now and see how it comes out, because the footage, the file sizes, oh my god, the file sizes. Because I have to convert everything to ProRes RAW to use it in the free edition of DaVinci Resolve, and you know, like 3 minutes is like 64 gig or something. You know, it's some ridiculous thing. It's 5 in ProRes RAW. The conversion, it came out to 5 gigs per minute of video with this camera. 5 gigs per minute. So 10 minutes is like you need a 64 gig card for 10 minutes of video. And I typically shoot 30 to 40 minutes of video on a video job. So I would need at least a 256 gig card and it'll be full. Anyway, that's that. So let me try and catch up with the comments here because I only have a few minutes to my next stream. Yeah, Panasonic, beautiful. Yeah, it's okay. Thank you, SL. And oh wow, the S5, amazing. The only problem with this is the cost, and more important, the weight. Have enough problem getting. Yeah, I'm only going to use this one lens, the 20 to 60, because like I said, this is a very specific tool. I don't plan on buying like using this for photography at all. Honestly, it's going to be purely for video. And the other thing is, it definitely doesn't feel as well built as the EM1 Mark III. It just feels, I mean, it has a metal, the bottom is metal, the top is metal, but I feel like everything in between feels like plastic. The lens is plastic, you know, which I don't care. You know, it needs to be lightweight, right? I'm glad it's lightweight, but when I pick up my EM1 Mark III, it feels like metal underneath this rubber grip. You know, it feels, you know, definitely metal top. The metal feels thicker here, you know, on the hood and on the bottom. This feels like a better made camera. And certainly for photography, this is going to be my go-to. And the handling, the one thing I noticed, because I looked at the Nikon Z6 and the Canons and all of those cameras while I was there. The one thing where the grip really makes a difference on the M1 Mark II and all the Olympuses is the thumb right here. You can see how, just by the shadow coming off of it, you can see how deep this thumb grip is right here on this camera. So when I hold this camera, it feels solid in my hand. Like I got a good grip between my 3 fingers and my thumb. Even the EM5 Mark II, I mean, you can see, let's see, you can see it has a substantial thumb grip, right? Sticks way out. Now, when you look at any other camera, Nikon, Canon, all those guys, thumb grip is pretty, look at that, I mean, there's nothing there. It's just a little bump. So when I hold it, I don't feel quite the same, you know, confidence as I do when I hold this. And just side by side, I mean, it's bigger than the EM1 Mark III too, clearly. It's hard to tell on screen, but it's definitely bigger, you know. Maybe this is a good representation. Let me put it against the shirt. This is a good side by side, you know. Oh, hello, Hafstein, sorry. And my Panasonic videos, maybe, we'll see. Yes, the G9 will give you virtually as good as GH5S. The S5 is a different ball game, yeah. Shame about the size and weight. I haven't know. Yeah, I know. I'm with you on that. I'm not buying any of their lenses. They're expensive and they're huge. I mean, there's a couple of Sigmas that look okay, but I think in terms of, I'll do comparisons, right? I'll compare the photography. I'll do some test shots in RAW and JPEG and all that, but in terms of photography, I have no need for that camera at all. And Nature says, my G9 is not that bad with 10-bit internal and 20 megapixel sensor. The S5 is out of my budget because of the pending one fee. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, all video must be done slowly. You're right. Best tool for the job, absolutely. He bought with his brain. That's a novel thing. Yeah, like I said, I put a lot of thought into it. And there's a little bit of gas in there. I'll be honest. You know, I was itching to buy a camera. And I just made an excuse to buy this. It's going to take me probably about 5 or 6 photo jobs. I mean, video jobs to kind of make up and pay this off. Probably more than that. Maybe 10 jobs. Between 5 and 10 jobs, depending what kind of jobs they are, to pay this off. Which, you know, with any luck will be in the next 2 or 3 months. It'll pay itself off, but I would say about 5 jobs. I need to upgrade my PC again. Yeah, next year I'm gonna get a desktop. I've been resisting it since 2000. 2000. When did I buy a desktop? It was 2011, I think was the last time I did a full-on desktop, but awesome new camera. Yeah, it's oops, sorry. I lost my place here. Um I'll do the comparisons and everything. I've only done like 10 minutes of video on it. I haven't really, in a few pictures, I haven't done anything with it yet. But the menus and everything are your classic Panasonic, easy to use, easy to find things, very intuitive. I'm really happy with the menus, all of that. Nikon grip is usually great. Yeah, the grip is good, but it's the thumb part. The thumb part is weak. I did record a little bit on my cell phone when I was at the store, so I'll try and work a way to play that back so you guys can see it. Yeah, the Canon RP is not a bad camera. You saw my review. It's pretty decent. And then Plato says, you're right about the thumb grip on my M1 II is better than the Canon 5D3. Yeah. Hey, Wudang, how are you? I need to get to my next stream. Yeah, Canon menus are excellent too. I'll give Canon all credit for that and the Panasonics. I think Panasonic, the touchscreen is a little better though. Oh, Trevor, hey, you need to email me. Hold on, Trevor, now that you're here. Email me whatever the history you wanted to give me on that boat photo that you sent in, because I'm going to go over that today in the stream. So let me go over there now. Thanks everybody for coming in today. I'll talk about this S5 later, but as always, it's been a lot of fun. So I'm going to go over to my photo editing live stream, so hopefully we'll see you there.